Hi guys, today we're going to do a forgotten rudiment, and in this series, of course, some of them have really been forgotten and some are just relatively unknown to Americans. This one I think has been forgotten in its home country, which is of course Britain. They had played it at some point in the past and now they really don't, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video, why maybe that they don't. But this is one of many rudiments like this. So we're going to talk about the stroke, flam, and drag paradiddle today, and of course everything I'm going to mention is in my new book, Rudimental Grand Tour, out on Mel Bay. Get it wherever drum books are sold. But also I could have picked any number of other things, the stroke and single drag flam paradiddle, or the flam and drag paradiddle, or the stroke and double drag paradiddle, or the stroke and regular drag paradiddle, which is our drag paradiddle number 1. And all of these things just kind of mix drags and paradiddles, or flams and paradiddles, or drags and flams and paradiddles together. And so they had several iterations like this, and I just picked the stroke, flam, and drag paradiddle because I think it's pretty straightforward and it has sort of all of the ingredients, the single stroke, the flam, the drag, and the paradiddle, which is pretty cool. So the iteration I'm going to play today comes from 1904 in a sort of civilian drum manual by Hawks and Son, and it is going to be basically a left single stroke, a left flam, a right drag, and then a right single paradiddle. If you put that in rhythm, so again I go really slowly. Something like that. So again, it's one of many iterations that I could have picked that have sort of drags and paradiddles and potentially flams mixed in there, but I think that one's pretty straightforward. It makes sense, it sounds pretty cool, and I think it's definitely been forgotten in Britain. If you want to hear a little bit about British rudimental drumming, stay tuned. If you don't, that's really the end of the forgotten rudiment portion. So thanks for watching, and I'll see some of you next time. Continue on if you want to hear about the history of British drumming. So if you made it this far, I'm kind of done playing. I'm going to talk for a while, so you might find this interesting. British drum history is long, and they've been going since like the 1500s probably, maybe even earlier. And of course American drumming hasn't existed since but the 1770s, many hundred years, a couple hundred years later, because, you know, obviously we weren't a country before that. And when we became a country, we just took British drumming, like pretty much verbatim, and used it. We changed it a little bit over time, so it has become quite different. But at the beginning, it really was the same, more or less. And it's funny because the British basically stopped updating their own drumming in like 1817, like right in the beginning of America. There was another update in like the 1880s, but most of it was the same. And then there was another book that came out in the 1980s, like 100 years later, and that was copy and paste. It was literally exactly the same. So they added nothing, they changed nothing. More or less, it's been stagnant for the last 200 years. And that's kind of weird because American drumming has not been stagnant. We've been progressing and changing and doing all kinds of stuff between military and civilian, and it's gone nuts. And so what's interesting is there really aren't that many civilian British books either. After like the 1930s, they just stopped existing. I know of like one from the 60s. If you know of another newer British rudimental drum book, you should let me know in the comments. But they really just stopped doing anything, and they today, at this point, the Royal Marines just pass out the PAS-40. Trinity College, for civilians, they just pass out the PAS-40. There's nothing inherently British left in what's taught as rudimental drumming in Britain, which I think is kind of a funny full circle kind of a thing. The Americans took British drumming and then changed it, and then the British looked at what we did to it and go, no, that's way better, and they took it back from us in our modified American form. So there's all the rudiments from Britain essentially are forgotten, except the ones that exist in the PAS-40 as American rudiments, because they don't use their own system at all. It's like been completely abandoned, which is this kind of a funny thing. And I don't know exactly when they did that, but like I said, 1985 I think was the last time they published something that was inherently British, and there might be like an early 2000s sort of reprint of that, like another edition. But by the time you get to the current day, 2023, they're just using PAS rudiments, and I think they have been for several years now. So sometime in the last, I was born in 85, so the last 37 years, they've really switched over from their own rudiments to ours. Weird, but true. Anyway, that's really it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.